Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone who is joining us live for this session or watching the recording later on. Welcome to Protect Your Company DNA using AI and digital learning to preserve your company culture. I'm Susan Harrell. It's my privilege to produce these webinars and work with various members of our teams and guests to provide you with information that you can use, hopefully. And we're very excited to have Philip back for another webinar today. So we will be recording this session and we will be sending out the recording and any supporting documentation that we have for you in the next day or so once we get that ready for you after the webinar. As we go through the presentation, I'll be stick handling questions to make sure Philip sees them. We might save some for the Q&A at the end, but follow along in the chat. I'll make sure Philip is aware of what's going on. And please use emojis to let us know what you think as we go through. There's going to be a very brief survey that pops up at the end of the session. And your feedback is so valuable to us because it helps us program new topics and to improve what we're doing for you. And this time there's a bonus. If you complete the survey and provide us with your email address, we'll enter you in a draw for a gift card to the Neovation swag store. So a little bit of extra incentive there, but please be honest in your survey. We really want to know what you think. So a little bit about us for those who are meeting us perhaps for the first time. We are Neovation Learning Solutions. Our motto is that we are powered by knowledge and fueled by AI. We have a broad suite of platforms, products, and services that help you deliver and build better training to your team online. And we are very much becoming an AI forward company to take advantage of the best tools that are out there to improve the work that we do for you. So we believe that AI is a great tool when it's human powered, hence all of our webinars recently on AI tools. But here's another extra bonus for you. Part of our commitment is helping our friends and clients become better users of AI tools. So we have launched the Practical Prompting Academy. I will include the link in the email sent out to you after the session. But this is 100% free. We have one course loaded so far on mastering AI skills, and it helps you to learn AI prompting. It's something that we've just launched. We're going to be expanding on this over time, but this is essentially our support to all of you who are wanting to improve your AI skills. So now I will turn it over to Philip. I've worked with Philip for over 15 years through two companies. He, like myself, is a true AI enthusiast and early adopter, and we are so happy to have him share his expertise. So, Philip, I will let you steal the screen share.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan. And yes, you and I have worked together for coming up actually on 18 years. I think it'll be on July 7th. I remember the day very, very well. Um, Thank you everyone for joining us. Happy to have you here. Couple of quick intro points. Feel free to ask questions. Susan will ping them out to me at an appropriate time. Don't worry if Susan interrupts me. It's just how we are. So it's just fine for interruptions. Happy to be called on at any point if it's relevant at the time. Happy to answer questions at the end. As Susan said, I am an AI enthusiast. I've been involved in the world of AI since 1989, when I was working with neural networks, trying to teach them the difference between faces and the walls. And we were, shocking to say, unsuccessful at that time. Um, but I'm a big believer in people as well. So I am an enthusiast, but I'm also a skeptic, which is an interesting combination at times. So our subject today, and I apologize, I'm going to have to mute myself a few times because I have a little bit of a cold coming on, is protect your company DNA using AI and digital learning to preserve culture at scale. Okay, so what does any of that mean? As organizations grow, what was a tight-knit group becomes bigger. Everyone stops knowing each other. The CEO stops knowing people in the same way as they did when it was a 10-person organization. I think the comment on the slide here, the leader becomes a ghost at 500 people, is perhaps a little bit hyperbolic, but it's there to make a point. Which is at 500 people, maybe you don't know your CEO, maybe they don't know you, likely, in fact. So the culture that you had and who you are at 5 people, at 50 people, can very easily disappear as you reach 500 people, and everything becomes a little bit less human. So, what we're going to do and what we're going to talk about is using AI to bring back some of the humanity to organizations as we grow. DNA and culture isn't really, and all of this is my opinion, what's in the employee handbook. It's not necessarily the documented policies, it's what people do. It's not what the policy says you should do, it's what you actually do in practice when you hit that moment that may not be covered by a policy, may not be covered by precedent, but you're there and you don't know what to do. What do you actually do? So, some examples here. Someone finds a struggling team member. What do you do? How do you balance productivity against empathy? Deadline slips, but no one's watching. Does it really matter? What happens when a customer complaint hits someone's desk who's not really equipped to handle it? Or a shortcut saves some time and no one will know. These are all really, they sound like really simple situations to be in and really simple problems to solve because you can always say, yes, empathy, of course, will win. And personal accountability always holds. But as we know, these things are filled with shades of gray, and it is rarely as simple as this. But what we can do with training is try and prepare people for the moments when these things happen and hope that they know what to do and that they do what we want them to, what our company culture says we should do without thinking, that it becomes their normal response. The danger as you grow as an organization is everything gets documented. Documentation is wonderful. SOPs are really important. Training people on SOPs, very, very important that people know to some degree, line item by line item, how things are meant to work, what they're meant to do. But that doesn't teach judgment. That teaches procedure and process. And so much of these things is now in the gray areas. So, how do you teach that? How do you learn that? You learn that by practicing difficult decisions in safe environments before you have to make the difficult decision in a real environment. So we are in a little bit going to look at what it takes to build this kind of thing and build this type of content. What I'm going to focus on in the webinar today is primarily around simulating those conversations, something that historically has been really hard to do. But the opportunity now is that it is much simpler to build them, much quicker to build them, and so you can build many more of them. As I said, in the next few minutes, we're going to take a look at me actually building one of those live. I actually built it in advance as well, just in case AI decides to misbehave for us today, because you never quite know. Um, Hopefully it'll work, but we'll see. So I just want to just reiterate this. This is now simple. It used to be hard. It used to be incredibly time intensive, right? You used to have to know sophisticated authoring tools to build these simple simulations. You needed to have to think a lot about exactly what situations you wanted to build. And because of that, frankly, no one builds these simulations for soft skills, for the cultural pieces we're really trying to get at that matter to us so much. So I'm particularly fond of this illustration that shows where people's knowledge actually matters. So process documents, they can look up task checklists, they can look up policies, they can look up operations manuals, they can look up. But judgment, empathy, prioritization, quality, these are all things that are really hard to document and that people still need to know what to do, know how to do it, and act on all of these different pieces of a different type of information. And that is so much more than the pieces that they can look up. Who here now, if you need to know how to do something, let's say repair a garage door, for example, something I have to do this weekend. Do you look for a training course on it, or do you look for it at the time you need it? You look for it at the time you need it because it's knowledge. But what I won't have is the judgment to know what to do if something goes wrong. So I can look up the stuff above the line, the stuff below is something that I need to develop in advance. Airlines are huge believers in simulations from a safety point of view. Pilots practice simulations time and time and time again. Multiple failures at the same time, multiple problems, conflicts, difficult situations where they have to make a judgment call that is going to be life or death, simply so that it is muscle memory when they come to the actual situation. And that's what you want for your manager conversations, for crisis scenarios, for onboarding, any kind of high stakes decision. You want these things to be muscle memory because they talk about who you are and how you interact with the world. They're not about knowledge. They're about someone knowing what to do. They're not factual. So traditional training that we often see stays at the I know this thing, I can regurgitate this thing, bottom of Bloom's taxonomy. And for the instructional designers on the call, I apologize, not an instructional designer. There is some simplification going on here. And a lot of training stays at the bottom. It stays at the remembering and understanding and being able to reiterate. Where we're going to jump to, where we're going to try and get to, is that synthesis piece at the top where people evaluate situations and then solve them. You can't test your way from here at the bottom to here at the top because you're testing knowledge. What you can do is enable people to practice things and apply their knowledge to different situations. Susan, I need a sip of water, so I'm going to ask, do we have any questions so far?
No, we do not. Not at the
We do.
time, though I invite people to put them into the chat.
Awesome. Okay. So what we're talking about here is a delta. It's a gap between the written policy that you have and the lived culture. And this is the gap that we're looking to fill and that we're looking to train for and that we're looking to eliminate so that written policy and lived culture become part of the same thing. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a real piece of policy content that might be sitting in a manual somewhere. I've not used anyone's actual content. I've pulled something and made something up. And we're going to take a look and see the kind of things that we can do in order to develop these types of scenarios. Okay, so I'm using Claude today. Happens to be the tool that I'm using, but you could use anything else at all. So I'm going to paste in the prompts that I've written because you really don't want me taking the time to type them and mistype them and misspell them. But here we are. So I'm saying, I'm giving you a policy. You need to act as a culture analyst. Take a look between what it says and the kind of things it doesn't prepare people for. So what it says and what that means in real life. So let's do that and let's see what Claude is going to tell us about these gaps. Okay. So Claude has taken a look at this policy that is reporting accuracy and deadline compliance. So in short, make sure that your reports are accurate, deliver them on time, and try and resolve any issues. And it's given us some scenarios now as to where the policy and how people behave may have a gap. What do I need to do? How do I figure this out? So I've got 5 different stories here. The numbers are right, the story is wrong. So if I look at the data, it doesn't quite tell the story. Or I find a discrepancy and it can be resolved in one of 2 ways. Or the report isn't very good, but it's delivered on time. And so we've got 5 different things here that could relate to this policy and how we talk to people about it, how we educate people to do culturally for us what is the right thing. because these things could be different for different organizations. So now we've got this data, and I'm going to say, okay, let's decide to build something around Delta number one, about the challenge number one. So we're going to share all these prompts with people afterwards, Susan, right?
That is correct.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to share a prompt now that says, look at the first one and write me a branching scenario for use in a corporate e-learning module. And let's see what we're going to get out of that. Okay, I now have a scenario. It's 4:47 on a Friday. I'm an analyst at a logistics firm, and I finished compiling the monthly operations report. I've noticed that there's an issue. Okay, here are my choices. Do I want to submit this with a note, submit it with a discrepancy flagged, submit the lower number to be safe? Now, all of these could be legitimate, right? So I can look at these and evaluate what I want to do, what might happen, and I've got consequences here as well. So now I already have a choice ABC with some nuance around what the most important thing might be for us culturally as an organization. But this isn't desperately useful, right? I've got a scenario that's written out, but I promised you something that would be more easily portable than this, or that you could put into an e-learning module. So let's ask Claude to turn this into an interactive activity. So this is going to take a little while for it to do that. And one of the things that I often do while I'm working with AI doing these kind of things is I'll leave it and go off and do something else. Obviously, can't do that while we're having this conversation, but it's something to bear in mind that sitting waiting for AI to do something, often not the greatest choice. Have some low maintenance, whether it's just checking email or something that you can do at the same time while it's building it.
So, Philip, while we're waiting for this,
Hmm.
I'd like to surface a question that comes up in
Yeah.
every AI webinar that we do.
Yeah.
Hasn't come up yet, but about document security. How do
Hmm.
we know that our materials that we're putting into Claude or Perplexity or ChatGPT aren't going to be consumed by the global brain and reveal our corporate secrets?
So I'm going to answer that by firstly saying I am not a lawyer. This should in no way be construed as legal advice. However, generally speaking, my experience is that if you have paid subscriptions, there are flags that you can set on the account to enable, or rather to enable that kind of privacy and security. Say, do not use my stuff for training the model. Uh, Free accounts, no, but you're that point, that's the price you're paying for the free account. You're letting the models train based on the data you're supplying. It's like the free accounts with, and I'm going to age myself here, Facebook. Facebook is free because they send advertising or they put advertising in front of you. Um, Network TV, again, I'm dating myself, is free
What's
because there's advertising. Free models for AI are free because they're using your data to train the model. So paid accounts are the place to be.
So just to summarize, by getting a personal low-cost paid account or a corporate account that is shared, then your data should be secure according to the rules of the individual platform.
I
Terms
am
and
not a
conditions may
lawyer.
apply.
You should always review the terms and conditions yourself or with a legal team or something like that. But that is my personal current understanding.
Perfect. Thank you.
You may still worry about these things. Absolutely. And that's totally legitimate. What I will say to you, if you're a Microsoft organization and you're using Copilot, Microsoft already has access to all the documents you have sat in OneDrive. If you're a Google organization and you're using Gemini, Google already has access to all of the documents you have in Google Drive. So you want to think about that and think about whether this is a concern that is more in the abstract than a real concern. Not that I'm wishing to dismiss people's concerns at all. Okay, so we've now got an interactive activity where I can click on these pieces and things will happen. Okay, but That again is nice and it gives me an idea as to what this is going to look like, but it doesn't really, it's not really useful. So now again, let's ask Claude to turn this into a graphically attractive three-stage interactive activity. So this is quite sophisticated. And you can see now I get to see the code that it's writing as it's building this, which for those of you who are geeky like me is kind of interesting. For those who aren't, it's incredibly dull and incomprehensible. And this is exactly where you would go and do something else like check email or continue writing a document or something like that. So what I'm going to do now, because this stage will take a while, is flip over to what I built earlier. But I'm hopeful in all the smoke and mirrors that exists in AI right now. You now know and can see that actually I am building this. There's no smoke and mirrors going on. This is a real thing. So now let's go over to one that I built earlier and scroll down to where we asked it to build that interactive activity. Turn it into, okay, so what did we get? Okay, I now have an interactive activity that is asking questions around this cultural item, this piece that is a judgment call that relates to who we are, and I can make a decision and interact with it. Okay, I'm going to fix it using my best judgment. So I always trust my judgment. Okay, what happens now? Okay, 80% confidence. 2 weeks later, I've got a problem because the risk is invisible and has now gone on to somewhere else. Okay, I can try another piece. So you see, we've already got this interactive activity that we can use, but it's a single question, single answer. That's okay, but I'm not sure we're necessarily going to see too much there. So now let's take a look at a three-stage simulation. That all I did was say, turn it into a three-stage simulation. And now I have my three-stage simulation. Okay, I'm going to correct it using my best judgment. See what happens. Okay, I add a note, submit it, looks clean. But now I see an email that's a reminder that was sent before I spotted the issue. Now what do I do? Well, um, that's okay. I think it's going to be fine. And now I get the follow-up from that. And I'm going to say nothing and let someone else handle it. And now I've got the outcome of that piece. Now, this was something that we designed and built, as you saw live on this call, that is a complex, nuanced simulation of a real scenario that someone might be in. Now let's talk about how you might go about using that kind of thing. Now, as we talk about how we might go about using it, there are three different pillars of culture that I'm going to refer to here. There are many more. You can classify them in different ways, but I've picked three because three is a good number. It looks nice on a screen, and it's a good number of things to demonstrate as much as anything else. So operational integrity, leadership, and sales and ethical growth. So operational integrity, hidden culture, who we are, what we do, how we do it. What happens when we have that critical deadline? Well, we've just seen this one exactly built before, right? So what do we do when the numbers are there, numbers are wrong? Do I flag it? Do I not? And the outcomes from that. Second one, HR, leadership, internal culture, how we deal with each other. Stuff that is really hard to document in a meaningful way. Okay, so here's the type of scenario we could have. Sarah submits a crucial report 15 minutes late. It's missing data points. She's distracted, exhausted. Third time she's done this week. Critical client deadline is approaching. Different ways this could be handled depending on your corporate culture. If you were a software startup in San Francisco, option A might be the way you go, maybe. Option B might be the way to go, depending on how you're client focused. Option C might be the way that you choose to go. So in all of these, there's no necessarily right answer, but there's feedback that you provide based on all of them and consequences as well. third one that we're going to look at here in terms of areas that you could build these types of situations in, sales and ethics. And this is one that hits home for me particularly. I've worked in sales for 30 years, one way or another. And so these are the types of decisions that salespeople have to make all the time, right? Someone wants or asks you about this premium package, $50,000, high margin. I'll hit my quota if I sell it. But they don't actually need that. They need something that is much cheaper. This premium package will not serve them any better. And they are going to, at some point, probably discover that they could have bought a cheaper package. So, what do we do? What's the right path here? These types of simulations enable your salespeople or people in business development to face these kind of situations before they actually have them in real life, because this is a really tough one. And then the feedback that comes at the other end, this one is perhaps a little bit more simple and less nuanced than some of the others could be. But this is the kind of thing that demonstrates the culture that you have as an organization. I've talked to this point very heavily about simulations, right? So I've talked about giving people real world scenarios and then taking them through them in a nuanced way, in a multiple step way, to be able to understand what they maybe should do, shouldn't do according to who you are. But they're not enough by themselves. They're not the only things that you can do. And so now we're going to talk about and maybe look at a couple of other different things that can be done to help reinforce these, and make reinforcing culture, I guess, part of your culture. So now let's take a look at those and what I've built there. Okay, that's that one. Okay, so I built my, sorry, I just need to cough for a second. I've built my training experience, and now I'm going to do something else. Take the branching scenario and let's build a manager debrief guide, a facilitation tool that a manager can use to work with their team after they've encountered that simulation, to talk about it and to go through the choices, talk about the different options, talk about what happened and how people felt. So I now have a manager debrief guide around the different questions that happened, including takeaways and including how long this should take and the different types of things that relate to the scenario that I have. Now, I am not suggesting in any way that this is the type of thing that removes instructional designers, training professionals from the loop at all. What I am saying is that it makes it easier to produce the production component of these pieces so that you can do more of them and do them better, because the actual production of the collateral and of the simulations and of all of the different pieces is quicker and is easier for you. So now I have reinforcement material coming out of that scenario that's sent to someone. Now I'm going to ask for one more piece to follow up on this. So build another activity that could be a reflection. There you go. That's why you don't want to see me doing this in real time, because I will mistype things. Build a reflection activity for someone to use based on this. So now I have a reflection activity that I can do based on the scenario that happened, what I did, what I didn't do, whether I was honest, and different options there for feedback. So I've taken this situation, what to do when there is a reporting inconsistency. I've turned it into a simulation. I've turned it into a collaborative exercise for me to do with management, and I've turned it into a reflection activity. And so the ease of being able to do this, as I said before, means that you can do more of them. What does doing more of them mean? It means that you can really get at all of these different cultural things and get people to practice decision making live every week, so that then when they comes to that real world situation, they're able to make the decision that you would want them to based on who you are. Now, Susan, I apologize to everyone. I'm really not feeling terribly well. I have a cough. I'm going to take a pause, have a sip of water. Susan, any questions now or
Uh,
still?
still no questions. I just put a little reminder in the prompt that people can ask if there's anything they would like expanded on or
Mhm.
discussed. I'm always amazed the more and more I use the various AI tools at how the more clear my intent about what I want produced, the more simple the prompt can be. That while there is definitely a knack to prompt engineering, as you develop your, and I hesitate to use this word, relationship with your AI platform. I've nicknamed mine Logan after Logan's Run, another very old reference for people. But the more that you build that relationship, it understands you, it understands what you're looking for, it has a context to it. And I very much appreciate the simple elegance of the prompts that you're using to get this work done today.
Thank you, Susan. And mentioning Logan's Run, I think it's safe to say that both of us are over 30, so that becomes problematic now.
Yes, yeah, it's a blind alley for most people at this point.
Yeah, so sorry everyone, that's the sci-fi
Um,
person in both Susan and I geeking out a little bit. But for those of you who haven't seen it, I heartily recommend watching Logan's Run. Okay, why does all of this matter? Because it is becoming easier and easier to copy business models, to copy products, to launch businesses and launch products. And so the only thing that is hard to replicate in all of that is culture. It's who you are and how you feel for organizations who work with you and how you feel for the people who work with you. Everything else is getting easier and easier and easier to replicate, or at least get very close to. Now, for those of you who work with manufacturers, yeah, absolutely. Manufacturing is much harder than anywhere in the intellectual property kind of space. But trust me, it's getting easier. More expensive, maybe, but easier to do. So, culture is the only thing that separates you and the only thing that enables you to hire successfully and retain people. Hopefully, there's no one on this call who needs convincing that culture matters. But maybe if we have a skeptic who's here and wants to say culture doesn't matter, happily talk about that.
I did toss a couple questions in the chat for you,
Oh,
Philip.
awesome. So we have, are the simulations something you roll out to individuals, or how would you use this in large group training? And how much time do you spend revising a prompt in order to achieve the end product? Okay, so let's talk about rolling simulations out to individuals or groups. I would give everyone within a group of people. So you saw the sales situation. I would give everyone that that simulation, and I would give people one a week, two a week. If they're quick and easy to build, there's no reason why not. So I would let everyone have them, because even if some things are specific to particular roles, the values behind them are not. So I would use it in large group training or small, medium-sized group training where everyone gets them. And then maybe for those that you want to, there is that type of reflection activity or the management leadership led, let's talk about this one. Now, the leadership led, let's talk about this one doesn't have to be formal. It can be totally informal. It can be, hey, Tom, what did you think of that simulation that we had this week? That one was a little bit tough. Or, hey, Tom, we've been doing these kind of simulations. What would be valuable for you for us to do so that you could, experience that for something that really matters to you? So engaging the team um, in what those simulations are might just generate a really great feedback loop. How much time do you spend revising a prompt in order to achieve the end product? So I'm going to give a wonderfully evasive answer, just enough to get the end product that I would like without doing more than that. The prompts that I built for this, 5 minutes, maybe, but I do a lot of this. So The first one that you do will probably take a lot more time, but thereafter, this is a production line, right? So if we go back to this one, I gave it a policy, asked it to identify deltas, picked one, and said, build a scenario. All of this is generic. All of it is generic and could be reused for Delta 2, Delta 3, Delta 4, totally different policy. So, what I would say is once you've built it the first time, you can go ahead and keep reusing the same prompts to be able to generate scenarios, and it becomes a rinse repeat. Of course, it's always worth spending time reviewing, looking at the results, iterating it, but it depends where you want to spend your time. If you can get to 80% with 20% of the effort, maybe then your time could be spent doing something else. So just enough without spending too much. Your aim is not perfect. Your aim is something that is consistent with your culture, because doing anything is better than doing nothing. How do you package them for sharing to other team members? Now, that's a really great question. So let's go back to one. Let's go back to this one. Let's go back to, where are we with this one? That's the reflection activity. Let's have, this is just HTML. So this is essentially a web page. So I could download this and give the HTML to anyone and they could run it. Now, more complicated if you want to put it through an LMS or something like that, but packaging it up, exporting it, turning it into a SCORM application, SCORM object or something for putting into an LMS, 5 minutes probably. So you can package them however you want. You can throw them up on web pages for people to test, throw them up on your intranet for people to play with. Lots of different ways of packaging them, because the output is something, in this case, is just the HTML. Totally portable. Any more questions, Susan, or shall we?
Nope. Carry on.
Awesome. Awesome. So we've got some simulations built based on who we are, how that relates to policy, how that relates to the things we want people to learn, and what it feels like to be us. Oh, do I see another question? Okay. So now we can use this in a different way. If we're wanting to use this to predict problems before they happen. So I do not advocate for grading people on simulations, or, oh, you failed this simulation, let's put you on a PIP or something like that. Don't advocate for that. But bulk data, like 40% of managers failed an ethical decision-making simulation, so they made a decision that doesn't fit with your culture, then that tells you something that you should know and that you can then do something with. So build additional training, talk about it internally, and then you can see, does that make a difference to the ethical decision-making simulations? Does it not make a difference? Again, don't advocate using this as individual data. People are less likely to be honest if they know you're watching over the shoulder, and you will get a different result. But the bulk data will enable you to look at all sorts of early warning signs within the organization. Thank you for the time check, Susan. So how do you package for sharing to other team members? Mobile first. I mean, we talked about these are just HTML. They can be packaged out however you like, but mobile first. These are 3-minute scenarios. Someone can fit them in whenever. And people, generally speaking, enjoy scenario-based training in a way that they don't enjoy fact compliance style-based training, right? They are more likely to find time to do it because, frankly, it's a little bit more interesting and likely to be a little bit more relevant to them. So turn these into things that get pushed out to them during a day, and then maybe you can review them the next day. Maybe that's a management touch point, depending on whether your teams have stand-up meetings or whether the kind of feedback mechanisms are something different. And so this is the kind of timeline that you could follow. Like you have a weekly scenario, then you have a reflection, then peer discussion, then manager check-in, and then some feedback into how you actually work your day, what that looks like. So lots of different ways you can do this, but it's totally scalable and it's a process, right? You do the same thing every week. And these kind of simulations, as I said before, people tend to enjoy doing them. Is it expensive? No. You just saw me do this at a in a simple way using a tool that would cost you $20 a month, right? So you can build these at that kind of price point. Now, again, not looking to take away from instructional design, instructional designers, custom content development. That is something that is very worthwhile for high value, high impact pieces over which you can take time. But it tends to be tougher to build these 2 or 3 minute simulations, and the cost of building them is out of all proportion often. And we design and build these for people. So again, not dismissing the value of instructional design. It's absolutely there. But what this means is your instructional designers can use this type of methodology to build these quick pieces that management is calling for. So the barrier isn't the technology, it's not the cost. It's thinking about what do we want to do? What do we want to simulate? How do we want to build these kind of things to reinforce our culture? How do you start? Well, start with what you've got. Ask what decisions separate and how they make them separate the people who you would admire from those you wouldn't. Ask the leaders, what do they do? Design 2 or 3 different branching scenarios. Use Claude, use Gemini as your test bed, and then try it with a pilot team. The one that I just built, you might give it to 10 people and say, "Hey, what do you think?" And then you could take that feedback and tell Claude to redo it. 30 days is a reasonable period of time for you to be able to do this. Um, so week 1, you start, you find the things. Week 2, speak to a leader, manager. What do you do in this situation? Week 3, build something around this first one, but build 2 or 3 maybe. And then week 4, pilot it. And then you're into a production line. So when the question again, when the HTML page is exported into an LMS, does it still have the high ability to generate very varied simulation than that we use? Yes, because all in this case, all of the content is within the HTML. Happy to engage to talk in more detail with anyone who wants to after this. So reach out, put it in the chat, reach out to Susan or the webinar team, and happy to talk in more detail about actual implementation within an LMS and things you might want to think about and how you might want to do it. Just reach out. I'm pretty technical and we're an LMS provider as well, so it's a world we know very well. Things not to do. This first one goes a little bit against what I was saying. Don't think about simulating everything. Think about the things that matter. So 10, 20 things, rather than just producing things for the sake of producing things. Make sure that the right choice isn't obvious. I mean, that's good instruction design principle anyway. You don't want it to be obvious. You want people to have to think about it. You want nuance there. You need leadership to buy in because this is something different. And so you need engagement from line supervision, from management and executives, so that these things are something that becomes cultural, right? So that you're teaching culture in a cultural way. And it's not one and done. Can't emphasize that enough. It is not one and done. It is you build it, you send it out, you get some feedback from it, you do something related to the same subject that may be a little bit deeper a month later, or something that is peripheral to that but related a couple of weeks afterwards. So it's not send it out and then everything's rosy in the garden and everyone knows what to do. You're making a commitment to an ongoing piece of work. What's it in it for the employees? And this is where I'm going to stop after this. people like to feel competent. They like to know what expectations are on there in a job. And I would believe that people don't make what we might categorize as non-cultural decisions out of laziness. They make non-cultural decisions because they don't know what the culture would have them do. This kind of thing, these kind of simulations and the follow-up enable people to understand what does this company do? How do we behave in those circumstances? And that will be different maybe for a startup in Silicon Valley, to a manufacturer in Manitoba, to an accounting firm in Toronto. It enables your teams to build better relationships because they'll be talking about these scenarios. They'll build better relationships with their leaders. And hopefully that will then lead to better critical decision making, better leadership skills. And then if they're interviewed internally or externally for a new position, can you talk about how you would handle a situation where the report is late? Absolutely. So I would do this and this and this. And I learned that because we employ simulations. And so I've simulated these types of learning experiences already. So I know what to expect, even though I haven't encountered them. Also might be a fantastic tool for someone who is looking to be promoted to do as many of these as they can as they relate to all sorts of different areas within the business so that they can demonstrate that they're trying to get ahead of where they need to be to take that next step up the career ladder. So I'm going to pause and or stop there. And Susan, over to you for any further questions or wrap up.
I shared one question for you, and while you consider that, I'll just give an example that I was thinking of in terms of corporate culture. So often, people on support desks or help desks, excuse me, they're incentivized for rapid call response to get that question answered as quickly as possible, even if it's not the best answer possible, just to get the call moving through the queue. Whereas some companies, kind of like Neovation, we practice first call resolution where we take the time to solve the problem. But that's a cultural difference. So when new people come into Neovation on the support team, maybe sometimes they have to relearn that they can take the time to respond properly to the client's question. So that's an example of a real-time kind of culture shift that might need to be reinforced over time with various scenarios, to help them see a way through to the proper solution the way we as a company would like them to handle it.
I love the way you said that, Susan, because the proper way that we as a company would choose to handle that. Because the way that a manual or a training program would state it would be something like resolve it on first call where possible and also respond as quickly as possible. Right. That would be an and, right? Because no one's going to say, no, 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 we don't care about you responding quickly, or no, 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 we don't care about first call resolution. So a standard training process or will often have both of those things as expectations. And where the balance sits is something that is cultural. I would argue that one is better than another, but that's because I work for a company where one of those is more important than the other. So I fit with that culture. Other organizations responding quickly may be more important. I'm thinking perhaps of anyone who works in broadcast media, where you may need a response and acknowledgement within a minute for an issue.
Mhm.
And that may be more important than actually resolving the issue in quickly, right? It may be that we know it, we've acknowledged it, let's do these things to mitigate for right now. So these types of things enable you to clarify those conflicts as they happen um, within your team as they're working through all the things that you've trained them on, and these conflicting things like first call resolution, speed. That's really tough unless you know. And you can talk about it, and a manager can explain to them, but it's much easier to go through a situation where you have to make the call and then understand than someone talking to you about it. So, yeah, thank you, Susan, for that. And the question I think was the HTML into an LMS, does it have a
Yes.
high ability? Um, so the HTML is what you were seeing on the right hand side. So that could be put straight into an LMS. Terms and conditions apply. And so it would work exactly like that. You would be generating the varied simulation within the AI piece and using the piece that you produce to go into the LMS. There are other ways of handling that. I've built a coach that working on a piece of content would be able to go into an LMS and coach someone on that material that is then external. These are all things that can be done. But from a simple point of view of building these types of very quick, easy, daily deployable simulations, you get the HTML, it goes into the LMS, it just works.
Haven't seen any other questions pop up. So I will start our little wrap up. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We have webinars every month. The next one actually is going to be Philip and I doing a double act on are you AI, moving you from AI curious to AI confident. We're developing an assessment scenario that will help you identify where you or members of your team are along the AI use trajectory. And we'll be providing you with a 30-day plan to help you move to your desired goals. So watch for that coming up at the end of April. And also our friend Adam Lamb, one of our senior instructional designers, is going to do another hands-on workflow build. Um, you, using AI tools to design faster, but to think deeper, using AI workflows for real L&D work. He's committed to a couple webinars over the course of the year. We're getting those up on our schedule as quickly as we can get them confirmed. But we'd love to hear from you. Tell us what kind of topics you would like to see. You can email me, hello@neovation.com comes to me. You can register for our webinars or watch our previous webinars. There will be that little survey that pops up. Please consider giving us your email and we can enter you in the draw. There's also a section where you can indicate that you'd like to have a follow-up conversation with Philip about any of the subjects he's talked about in this or other webinars. We would love to take a few minutes to speak with you about your unique use case and where you are at along that AI trajectory as we're moving into these great new series of tools that make us, work faster, work smarter, but do a lot of the cognitive lift for us, which is always great. So we hope to see you next month for the AI readiness webinar, and we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks again for your attention today, and thank you, Philip, for sharing your expertise and all of your work in prompting.
Anytime.
Lots of great information there. We will be getting the recording out. You should have it by Friday latest with the recording, the PDF of the slide deck, and also all of the prompts. And I'll make sure to include the link for the AI Prompting Academy so you can start taking that course as well to improve your prompt engineering. We're so excited to offer that to you. So thank you so much. I'm going to end the webinar and please watch for the survey to pop up.